If you're like a lot of parents that we see in our office, you've probably tried it all for your child, from behavior charts to talking with counselors, maybe even considered medication for your child's struggles at school. And if you're still searching for answers, we totally get it. In our office, we specialize in helping kids with ADHD and sensory processing challenges get back on track, especially if their parent is worried about sending them back to school. Maybe you're worried about the phone calls from teachers, maybe focus issues, meltdowns over homework. Maybe you see that brilliance in your child and you don't like to see them struggle in an environment that just doesn't seem set up for how their brain works. So here's the thing. In 2022, there was 1 million more ADHD diagnoses compared to 2016. And sensory processing challenges now affect nearly 1 in 6 kids. So, even though it's more and more common, traditional doctors are often using the same things they did 20 years ago instead of addressing the root neurological issue. So, in this video, I want to dive into what is happening in your child's nervous system and what might be going on that could actually help you get them set up to thrive this school year. So, whether your kiddo struggles with ADHD, sensory processing challenges, anxiety, if you're ready to dive into some drug free strategies, that's what I want to share with you in this video. So, first, I want to share the story of fifth grader Grant. When he came to see us, he was diagnosed with ADHD and he had an auditory processing challenge. He would get easily distracted if he heard other kids talking, if he heard someone tapping their pen. And as a result, he was starting to fall behind in school. So, not only were parents worried, but you could imagine as a fifth grader, you start to feel your self esteem shift as well. Reading and math were his biggest challenges. The other thing mom noticed is when they would travel, he would have these random incidences of throwing up, and she wanted to help him, of course. So here's what we did. In our office, we started to look at what was going on with his nervous system and get it out of this stress mode. So fast forward just 2 months into care, mom's filling out a progress form, and she said he recently got an A+ on a math test. He's having new excitement for reading. And I asked her how travel was going. She said, come to think of it, we've been out of town for soccer, for traveling soccer these last few weekends, and he hasn't been throwing up. Another week goes by. Grant comes into the office and he goes, Dr. Ty, guess what? I just got moved up in math class. So the crazy cool thing with that is not only is his self-esteem growing, our parents starting to feel a relief that their kiddo's going to do well in school, but we were able to do it without a different medication, without a special diet or a certain strategy that he needed to like only take tests in a quiet room. We didn't have to change the environment. What we did is helped his nervous system internally start to heal and do better so he could process the exact same environment in a much better and healthier way. So I want to dive into in this video why that happened and how we look at things differently in our office. One of the first things we do is when we're working with a kiddo with ADHD with sensory issues, we're looking to see how their nervous system is doing. So I'm going to bring up my iPad here. And with this fancy graphic, what this is a teeter-totter. So what we're looking at here is the two sides of the teeter-totter is we have a gas pedal and we have a brake pedal. So what happens is our nervous system needs to go back and forth between both of these. If your kid's playing on the playground, if they have a deadline at work, if they're competing in sports or a competition or a performance, they need the gas pedal to focus and get through that. If they're sleeping at night, if they're digesting their food, if they're trying to rebuild their immune system, if they're trying to focus in class, they need the brake pedal. So what we commonly see in our office is that this balance between gas pedal and brake pedal starts to get shifted out of balance. So if the nervous system starts to shift out of balance and it gets stuck there, now what we see is it starts to wire for fight flight and it starts to wire for stress mode. And that is the most common thing that we see with kiddos with ADHD is this gas pedal starts to go up. And now it is going to be tough for them to focus. It is going to be tough for them to poop. It might be find them getting sick more often, or you find them always running around not paying attention because their gas pedal's on high, and as a result, their brake pedal is worn down and on low. So the first step is we want to assess how this balance is doing. If gas pedal's stuck on, we want to start to take the foot off the gas, activate the brake pedal. And when we bring the brake pedal up, now what happens is their nervous system starts to shift out of fight or flight, and it can start to do the things that Grant's nervous system allowed him to do. So in order for that to happen, there are four critical pieces that I want to mention in this video that are going to help your child do better. So number one is sleep. Obviously, sleep is important, but one of the things that is happening during sleep, especially when it comes to a sensory side of things, is the brain is integrating what happened during the day. So if your kiddo's gas pedal is stuck on, you might find them not wanting to go to sleep at night, even though they've played hard all day long. Or they lie in bed and their mind just keeps racing. Or maybe they sleep a little bit and then they wake up and they're up for a couple hours or crawling in your bed every night. So, sleep, we want to activate the brake pedal because that's going to help your child fall asleep and stay asleep much easier. When that's happening, the brain is actually making all these connections to integrate what happened during the day. Second piece then is we want to have an organized environment. There was a family that we're working with, and daughter's 8 years old, had a lot of visual processing challenges and would get distracted and overwhelmed, anxious if there was a lot going on visually. And her family was actually doing a kitchen remodel. So I said, all right, we're going to have to assess now for this stretch of time, the kitchen's going to be a complete disaster. There's going to be things everywhere. It's going to be very distracting for her just to look around and see all this happening. That is going to stress her nervous system out because it's still healing. It's still learning how to process all that input coming in. So what I recommended for mom is during this stretch of kitchen remodel, I want you to make sure her room stays super picked up. Maybe you take some posters off the wall. Maybe you make sure there's not toys or clothes, things strewn about the room, because you need a place where she can go where visually is super calming, super organized. So maybe you have a structure where when your kid walks in, they have a place for their shoes, a place for their backpack. Maybe their homework is set up in a nice organized way. The more organized the environment is, the easier it is for their sensory system to process what's going on around them. Number three here is exercise. So this is something, again, kind of like sleep. We've heard of it. We know it's good for us. There is a book called Spark, and in that book, they actually did research on how exercise helps kiddos do better during the day. I'm going to bring this up here. It was Dr. John Ratey, and in the book Spark, he said that exercise can be as effective as medication for some children with ADHD, especially if it's done in the morning. So the thing with exercise is it's obviously it's going to boost the feel-good chemicals, serotonin, dopamine. It's going to help activate the nervous system. And what we find is that gross motor movements really activate the brain for learning. So if you can get your kid running around maybe in the morning, maybe after school, instead of rewarding them with some iPad for a big school day, as you get them moving before they're going to study, is a really good time to get their body doing some big motions and big movements because it's going to activate their brain for learning. One of the reasons it does this is a sense called proprioception. So proprioception is a very calming sense for the brain. If your kiddo's ever been in OT, you've probably heard of it. It comes from the little joints and little muscles, and every time we move, that sense sends info to our brain to help it feel calm, grounded, more organized. Think of yourself if you've been sitting at the desk all day and you start to feel a little impatient, a little unfocused, a little moody at the end of the day. It's because you're not getting that sense into your brain. All right. And then the last piece then, as I mentioned, what we do in our office, what we did with Grant, is we actually focused only on number 4 here, the neurologically focused chiropractic care. Because what we found is when his nervous system was stuck in stress, he could do all the other strategies. He might try to have an earlier bedtime. He might be eating really well. He might be doing breathing techniques. He might be outside exercising. He might be in an environment that's pretty organized, but his nervous system was still under stress internally, and as a result, he couldn't focus. So what we did is took his nervous system out of stress with our gentle neurologically focused adjustments, And as a result, his nervous system started to heal and integrate so he could handle sounds coming in better. He didn't have to instantly look, his brain could start to filter out that sensory input. We took his nervous system out of fight flight so he wasn't getting these anxiety, nervous moments and throwing up when he traveled. And ultimately, that led to a nervous system that could start to focus and pay attention. And the cool thing with that is we knew he was a brilliant kid. He had a loving family. He was ready to succeed. He was ready to thrive. He just needed that little bit of input from the inside. So if that resonates at all with your child, I encourage you to reach out. Check out the links in our bio, the description on our website, where we do more deep dives into how the nervous system can heal. And I also talk about the neurological scans. We have links to that on our website as well, where it explains how we can actually measure your child's nervous system to see if it is stuck in stress mode. And as a result, if we see that on the neurological scans, we can put a care plan together that's customized for your child because we know exactly where to start, where to clear out that stress, and how much care is going to be needed to really set your child up to thrive. So please know we're here for you. Reach out, and we've got you.